Hi. Uh, you know, Watching these videos of mine on this channel and editing them, uh, it seems just by accident or coincidence that, by instinct, that I say hi at the beginning of every video, and it's starting to annoy me. Um, it's almost like I'm a walking meme. Anyway, welcome back to my channel. If you're here for the first time, welcome, and welcome back if you've been here before. If you like this content, please like it and subscribe. I share what's on my mind. I explore how my mind works and my thoughts on various things. So, um, so this morning, this being Saturday, it's a day off for me. I had a nice time yesterday. I went to Shabbat dinner and had a nice service. I'm Jewish. Um, and I just put on YouTube this morning, just watching videos while I scribble, or I don't remember what I was doing, but I was probably just going through YouTube videos, checking out new stuff. And there's a channel I subscribe to called Professor of Rock. I think his first name is Adam. I'm not sure. Anyway, Professor of Rock on YouTube. Great channel. Um, he has a very enthusiastic personality. He talks about and interviews sometimes rock stars, musicians, and he talks very passionately. He talks from the heart about about hit music and a lot of history about music, particularly from the '80s, which is when I spent my childhood. So I felt inspired to start writing some lyrics myself. This is something not entirely new to me. In high school, a few times I wrote poetry. I was primarily aspiring to be a filmmaker, a screenplay writer, but, and I've covered this in my previous videos, but when he was talking about some good lyrics and collaborations on albums and so forth, that inspired me to see if I could um, try my hand at doing this again, because I haven't written poetry in a very long time. I haven't really written it since my senior year of high school, and that was about 30 years ago. Maybe it was a calling I should have followed through with. Um, there's a theater slash bar downtown where I am that I'm thinking of seeing if I could perform some of these. Anyway, I want to share this poem and some thoughts on another, or this song and another. Well, technically, it's not a song until you put music to it, but it's a song in the making, and perhaps I'll share another one that I wrote. I started to write on the flip side, and then I wanted to talk about what I figured out on my own just by looking through the lyrics and thinking of favorite songs on my mind. All right, there are no titles to these yet, but every this is the first stanza. Every leaf that drops reminds me of the barren tree, fighting against time to show you the inside of me. I'm a pretender, a soldier wrestling destiny. You'll never glimpse my mind. We all have a reason to be. This is my soul. Someday fame, I thought, was just down the road. My future looked bright, and ooh, 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 passion just flowed. Someday you'll go wild over the name on the big screen, the man you walked by, buried in a geek magazine. Honest, time doesn't lie. This world may never share my art. Sorry, I'll say that again. Honest, time doesn't lie. This world may never share my art. My face looking back, been walking the path of my heart. All right. Then the second one I have very vaguely written down. I first line blank so far. I wanted to impress. I wanted to be Superman, the kind you da 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 da. I look at the wreckage, confusion in the dark. That might be the chorus. Um, Never knew what the admiration would be like. And I wrote down like on the topic I'm talking about. It's like doing an autopsy or a reassessment or looking back at the wreckage, um, and confusion in the dark. Then I wrote that, and then I went back and I figured I could start with the beginning of the song. Hey, from the darkness. Oh, I started off by saying, "Hey, I'm calling out in the dark." And then I changed it to, "Hey, from the darkness, can you hear me call?" And then the next stanza would be about a social barrier trying to break through. And then the finale, I have the clock can't turn back. So, so I have those lyrics, and I'll work on them. I love the 1980s music, and some days ago, maybe weeks ago, I was at work and I had some time. Believe it or not, I had some menial task I won't get into, so I won't embarrass myself. But I was sitting alone and thinking through, for example, Madonna's song. I probably had Cher on my mind and some other songs that were very clear to me. Open Your Heart by Madonna was one of them. Um, for one thing, those songs were very clear, and so that I could think through all the lyrics and see how the rhyming scheme matched up. The second thing is that if they were clear to me, if they were so memorable after all this time, they must have some lasting power. So therefore, they would be good examples to look at, to see how to write good songs. Um, Maybe I can work into coming up with music. I'm sorry, my chin keeps going down. Maybe I can go into learning how to come up with melodies. I've been told that I have that people like my writing, and I enjoyed writing the poetry. So I'm thinking that the songwriting thing would, if nothing else, um, make sure that I haven't abandoned the poetry thing entirely. I don't know if I'll ever make something out of the songwriting thing. As I said before, I had thought of myself as making movies, but um, I know there are a lot of people that do go into songwriting as a gig or a temp thing. I worked, well, a coworker of mine, who's much younger than me, has a band that he works with, and it seems that everybody in high school seemed to have this band. It's like you're in football or you're in the band or something. And I never was either one. There was no calling for filmmakers. It's very, very much alone. And aside from filmmaking, I wanted to write like books, and there was no real calling for that. There's no group thing. Songwriting is, in some sense, very much a group effort, and screenwriting is very much a work of solitude. So I never had a group that I worked with on these songs or song poetry or something. Um, Let me know where I'm going with this. So anyway, so I was okay. So a couple weeks ago or something, I was thinking through these songs at work in a low lull period, and I realized that there's probably a method to the rhyme scheme. Um, I tend to write long lines and stanzas, and that's probably not good for songwriting. And I reason there's probably a method to how long the line is or how long the timing is between the rhyming of one word and what it rhymes with. Um, and then this morning, just before doing this video, I went through a lot of the songs and I noticed that some of them, well, Madonna comes to mind immediately, um, don't really have any rhyme scheme at all. Once in a Lifetime, I can't remember the name, Talking Heads by Talking Heads. I couldn't see any rhyming there whatsoever, and yet it always seemed like songs should be rhyming, and yet they hold up. And Cher's song, If I Could Turn Back Time, I can't really find much of a rhyme scheme. I mean, maybe there's a little bit, and I forgot about it, but Um, another thing I noticed, well, I had sort of known this already, was you have an opening and then a chorus, and then, I mean, like a first stanza and then a chorus, and then a stanza, and then a repeat of the chorus, and then sometimes there's a third part. Oh, this is interesting. Some time back, I had realized that the structure of first stanza, maybe two stanzas, and then a chorus, and then two more stanzas, and then a chorus, and then like a finale is like a three-act structure in a movie. And so the movie mind and the music mind may again be similar. Um, and I noticed sometimes that the what should be the third act, sometimes in songs, doesn't even really exist. I was thinking of Sweet But Psycho. I can't remember the name of the artist. Ava Max uh, repeats a lot of the lines, but there's no real third act, so to speak. Um, I should look through Lady Gaga's music too. Anyway, uh, so whenever I'm driving through on the radio, driving to work, I listen to a station that plays music. They alternate between, I think it's Y94, they alternate between 80s songs and some song after the 1980s and sometimes more recently. They kind of mix 80s and 90s, I think, together a little bit. And then they play 2000s and 2000, anything 2000 or whatever onward is considered more modern. So they alternate, one here and then next one is back then and then a current one and then back then and so forth. Um, so I've heard some music. Edge of 17. Um, you think as well constructed as that is, you'd think that how that would have some rhyming scheme, but I don't remember any distinct rhyme scheme. And yet that's such a good lasting song. Um, I know the melody plays a big part in it. I also noticed that some songs begin with the chorus and then goes into a stanza and then back to the chorus again. Um, and I don't want to, now that I'm conscious of this, I don't want to get tripped up as I had before with movie structure. That's something actually I wanted to talk a bit about uh, before talking about music and before Professor Rock threw me off and made me inspired me to do that poetry. I wanted to talk about Dramatica, this Dramatica theory that helped me out a lot. I wanted to be a filmmaker and I'd written several screenplays, and then I hit a wall, and I know that I've said this a zillion times. That wall was the Madonna movie I wanted to write, and I did write one. It's not as powerful, so I went back and I tried to write it better. I kept shifting the objective story, but I kept the relationship between the two characters, Madonna and Joe. Originally, it was Jack. It was yeah, Jack, but or Jake, and then I changed it to Joe. Um, I was tripped up early on, partly tripped up, partly did something that made good sense. Sorry, I had some nice cereal earlier, and it's tastes good the second time around. Okay, um, so I I was learning how to write outlines. I was learning how to write treatments, but what I wanted was learning the structure of film, learning how to express themes and ideas and plot. Well, the genre as Dramatica, the Dramatica theory explicitly lays out. There are four aspects of movies or storytelling in general. There's genre, the top, there then plot, then theme, then characters. And I had a little dose of this from having read the book Story by Robert McKee. His book was pretty good, but it didn't go very far, and in my opinion, he was weak on explaining tangible things that I needed, giving tangible tools that I needed to be able to take and to construct my own story. He was telling almost subjectively what worked for some movies and what didn't work for other movies. He gave some good tools, but it wasn't enough. Dramatica theory, on the other hand, was incredibly enough. It was more than enough. It was wow. Um, if you want, if you should go to dramatica.com and check it out. But it works on fours, and I've talked about this theory before. Um, it it works with algorithms, and it calculates it works in tandem with what you put into the program. You put in certain themes you would want, and then see the way I'm telling this, it sounds like it's just a computer program that plays mash, that just takes in what you feed it and then it just spits out something. It's more than that. um, it's mimicking how the mind works through a problem. And so you can do some of the theory in your head. I mean, that's some sense why it's a theory. It's not just a computer program. By studying Dramatica and the theory, you can understand how the structure works and so forth. To movies that were written and produced decades before this theory came out. Anyway, you put in some themes, some things that you want in the movie, and it figures out how to tell the themes more completely, or it shows you hypothetically, it shows you, okay, in the total all four dimensions, so to speak, in the total framework of the movie, if you want to talk about these themes, this is what the entire movie would look like. Now, it's not a linear um, depiction of what the movie would look like, although some of it is. It's mostly a picture of what this part of the movie will be talking about, what this part of the movie will be talking about, what that part, what the main character will be troubled with, what the impact character will be, all that. And it goes into further detail. It talks about which audiences would be turned away, which ones would be attracted, how you can modify that, and so forth. So, so going back to music, I really needed something like that. I'm sorry, going back to film, I really needed something like that and I was in the dark trying to figure out how to do it. So with music, I don't want to become tripped up and just going from song to song and trying to figure it out. Um, I know there's more variation. I know that there's no clear cut, cookie cutter example of a song. So I'm well aware of that. And I do want to know the some I do want to know some tricks and some ways to get certain reactions that I want. So I'll take this and I will hopefully have melodies and I'll keep you up to date in the future. By the way, offhand, yesterday during the Shabbat service, there's some songs, particularly niguns. Speaking of music, a nigun in Jewish music doesn't have any words. It's simply a melody that you tune. Da 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 da. So me with this vast thinking brain has always thought about something while humming a nigun, and I like to think of this depiction of the Jewish deity. Um, I think it's the most accurate. The Jewish deity, as depicted in the five books of Moses and Judaism in general, um, there are two primary names for the deity. There's one that's Yud He Vav He, that's a tetragrammaton, and sometime in the past, the Yud, in English it would be Y, became a J, a just sound, and that's where you get. And then, of course, Hebrew doesn't have vowels. The words are only written with consonants. So that's where Jehovah comes from. And you have y ha v h y h v h, and from what other research I've come across, it looks like there are some places where the vowels were inserted in some texts or some copies of the five books of Moses, for example. Some scribes actually wrote in the vowels, and there's a letter that I'd seen a YouTube video by a researcher, Jewish researcher, who came across this letter, and he talked. I can't remember. It was 1500s or 1800s or sometime. It was from one rabbi to a younger rabbi. It may have been his son, and there was this ritual about passing the name of God down when the person is standing in water, perhaps a certain amount of water, having your feet step in the water, and there's a certain reason why you be stepping in water. Um, but there's a mnemonic device that helps you remember the order of the vowels that are to be inserted, combined with the consonants Y, H, V, H, or in Hebrew it's Yud, He, Vav, He, and it's a syllable break. It's an O sound, and it's an aw sound, not ah. In Hebrew, there are two vowels. There's ah and there's aw. It's the aw. Um, so according to that, the actual name should be pronounced Yehovah. And then there's the other common term for God, which is Elohim. Stan Tenen, who's now dead, has uh, figured out a model, a geometric model, and so forth. He has a whole thing. He's written a book called the Alphabet That Changed the World. And there's a YouTube channel that's continuing his work. His wife actually participates. There are, I think, about 4 or 5 people that come on. It's like a forum they have split screens and they come on, and they do about 45 minutes or so in each episode, and they're about up to like episode 45 or 46. Uh, anyway, um, his take on the two primary names, is that Yud He Vav He represents the singularity, the still the specific, like, pinpoint aspect of God, and then Elohim represents the wide expanse. So that's very nice, and I think, well, I don't want to say I think. I often point to that in my mind as being one of the reasons that I think that clicks with the way reality is. Not saying I'm that I'm a literalist when it comes to the Bible, or religion. It's all history and it's all real and it's all and God really exists. Blah 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 blah. I'm saying that this depiction, this if he's true, if what he's saying, if what he had, if his hunch is accurate, and if this is really what the Jewish deity or the Israelite deity is, this is the true nature of the Israelite deity, it matches comfortingly well with my view of reality. It's a singularity in tandem with, or union with, a wide expanse. You find that in black holes, and you find that in a lot. Well, black holes immediately come to mind, but find that in a lot of places. So, as a matter of fact, the only time that you see the two names appear as one character is in the Garden of Eden story, and after that, you see either one name or the other, and I think it's on purpose which name you see. I've talked about this in an earlier video. There's another person who's written a book. His name escapes me for the moment. Chaver.com, CHAVER.com, and that's a study word. Chaver, if I remember correctly, means it relates to companion, usually used in terms of studying companions, because in Jewish tradition, it's not good to study alone. I mean, I study alone. A lot of Jewish scholars study alone, but to really get a full benefit of study, you need a study partner. It's like you're cramming for a test and you have some schoolmate to help you come over to your house and help you study. It's more than that, because out of that comes insight, and the two can share ideas. Anyway, all right, on to the website he has. He's written a book. It's free on the website if you want to look at it, or I imagine there's a way of buying the book yourself. I mean, buying a more tangible copy of the book. But he's figured out through verses and phraseology how each of the 5 books in the Pentateuch, the 5 books of Moses, Genesis through Deuteronomy, can be seen in terms of a linear progression, as is commonly thought of, or can be seen in terms of graphical layout. In other words, smaller collections of verses make up units, and the units arrange themselves, and you know how they arrange themselves by means of cues, phrasing cues that are given in the text when you read it linearly. And he goes, it's fascinating. Anyway, the two names, Yud He Vav He and Elohim, appear in different rows. His thing is, rows. It's a matrix, rows and columns. And particularly in Genesis, I think Elohim, if I have it, no, Yud Hey Vav Hey. Yud Hey Vav Hey only appears in the top units in the top row, and then Elohim, I think, is only in the bottom row, and then a mixture of the two is in the middle row. If I have that correctly, that's fascinating. And that's the not the only way in which he found to divide these into rows and columns. Um, it came out like that. I also noticed something that Yud Hey Vav Hey. No, let me go retrace back. I noticed that Elohim in chapter 1 of Genesis creates the world or creates this, and then um, in Exodus, Yud Hey Vav Hey comes to um, bring about the 10 plagues, and the way he shows it, the 10 plagues can be arranged by means of what Moses is doing, what the gestures are, what certain phrases are. They clue you in on when the segments end and a new one begins. They can be arranged so that they're a reverse order of the order of things created in Genesis by Elohim. So it's like Elohim created these things in a certain order, and then in Exodus, Yud Hey Vav Hey twists and destroys these things, turns them in reverse. So I guess it's a way of saying that um, ultimately Yud Hey Vav Hey Elohim can both create and destroy. Um, so anyway, so it's fascinating. A lot more. I wish I could talk with people a lot about these things more, a lot more often because well, but unfortunately I don't encounter people um, who even know about this stuff. So I go to things like Meru.org and Haver.com and so forth to continue learning. So anyway, I guess I wanted to share that extra thing with you, and hope you're having a good day, and I'll talk with you soon. Bye.